today I am super excited to have in the room with me, the virtual room that is, Spencer Russell. Spencer, you may know him as an award-winning kindergarten and first grade teacher and the founder of Toddlers Can Read, an online program that helps parents and caregivers teach their little ones to read. Recently, Spencer was the keynote for the South by Southwest Educational Conference, and his work in the early reading space has gained national coverage and has led to his new position as the head of literacy strategy at Lovevery. Welcome to the show, Spencer.
Thank you for having me. An amazing podcast voice, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm a little bit under the weather, but I will take that all day long. You've done your share of podcasts, so I appreciate that.
Of course.
I love what you're doing. And most importantly, I love that you think about yourself as a reader as well. And you have shared with folks that you yourself had trouble reading. Could you tell me a little bit about that and why you think your work is so important to kids that are struggling?
Of course. And unfortunately, I don't think my story is very special. It's actually relatively common in our country, where I started school in first grade and I did not know how to read. I was homeschooled before first grade, which happens, but even kids who go to pre-K, they go to kindergarten, then they start first grade. A lot of us have the same experience, which is we see those little things on the paper, but we don't know what they mean or how to put them together. In my case, I had loved reading. Before I started school, I loved the idea of it. I loved being read to. I loved books. I loved stories. I just didn't know phonics and I couldn't blend. So when I started first grade, I was one of the two worst readers in my class. I remember situations in which myself and Joe Beth, who was the other person in my little group, had to stay behind while other kids got to do other activities. We had to do extra work. It was challenging. It was frustrating. I cried when I had homework to do because I just couldn't figure it out. So it was a pretty negative experience with reading, even though in every other aspect of school, math, socially, recess, excellent at recess. Reading was just really, really tough for me. And I've tried to use that experience to help to empathize and relate with other kids who struggle with reading, with parents whose kids struggle with reading, with my former students, and just help make sure that people have a fair shot, because when you can read well, it makes a lot of other things in school and in life much easier.
Wow, that is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that story. And it just makes me think about all of the students that I've supported who've been struggling. And it's important to humanize this issue. We get so caught up in all the research and forget sometimes that there are human beings on the other side of this work, right?
Right.
So tell me this. In this world where we're all talking about the science of reading, why are parents a child's best teacher of reading?
I think what people miss when you think about the best kind of possible way to teach these instructional strategies, the perfect progression of letter sounds or of different phonemic awareness skills, is that there's another part of teaching that we've known forever is critical to student success, which is one-on-one instruction or small group instruction. But being able to whittle down that group of kids that you're working with to 5 or to 3 or to 1, and then give that kid exactly what they need based on their data, that is critical. And so in the hierarchy of what we can focus on, and it's not mutually exclusive, but we can focus on what is the exact perfect reacher space strategy for teaching, and we can get pretty good with our instruction. At the same time, we can also focus on data-driven instruction, on small group or one-on-one instruction, on relationships and trust with kids. And those are all votes of confidence for the parent, not for the teacher. And I'm someone who's been a parent and a teacher. And I can tell you it was easier teaching my 2-year-old son than it was teaching 28 first graders. Was he as smart as my first graders? No, he was 2, right? I mean, did I have the same teacher authority with him as I do with my first graders? No. I'm dad. I'm playful. I'm fun. All those different things. But what I had with my son that I did not have with my students was one-on-one time. I had deep, intimate knowledge of who he is and what he liked and how to keep him engaged. And so parents have even with multiple kids, even without the teaching experience, they can find these small pockets, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to work one-on-one with their kid at their exact level. And it's part of my job with my presence online to help make that time more productive. And maybe we never teach the kind of mythical perfect lesson, but we get really, really close. And with a couple kind of basic fundamental skills, parents can provide an incredible lesson for their kid that is much more tailored and specific to them than the classroom teacher is often able to provide.
Wow, I never really thought about that kind of unique endeavor that a parent really does have. It's a really critical point. So, if there was a place to start for new teachers and maybe a family or caregiver givers that do not feel up to the challenge, like they just don't know where to begin, where do you recommend that they start?
I like starting with letter sounds. The reason why is because it is very easy to make it fun and you get really, really quick wins for the kid.
Yeah,
So teachers, you've got to pay attention to your curriculum, to your scope and sequence. I don't want to negate any of that. This is easier for me to recommend to parents or homeschool parents who have some flexibility. But when you're teaching kids letter sounds, a lot of people will kind of just do the ABC song or teach the full alphabet and try and do all of these. I like to start with like 2 or 3 sounds at a time and just teach those until the kid knows them.
sure.
I like doing games, like jumping on them or throwing them or stomping them or coloring them. We had a kid over here last week who plays football, and so he's a quarterback. I held them up, and he's saying the sounds, throwing the football at the sounds. You can do anything, but you can get most kids mastering 3 to 4 to 5 letter sounds in a week, feeling that progress, feeling that success, looking forward to the time. And then you can begin to kind of build in some blending work, build
Sure.
in some of that phonemic awareness once you've got the kind of bones of the routine. But I really like leading with kind of like psychology. And honestly, from the parent perspective too, there's a hurdle for people to get started. Sometimes it's the kids got the hurdle and they don't want to do it. Often it's the parent. So if we start with the easiest, lowest hanging fruit, something that's going to help them read, and then we start to build in more and more into that routine, I think that's a really approachable way for a lot of people to enter this. Now, if you do feel really confident, you can start with a really structured lesson and you can do some work with phonemic awareness, different skills like blending and segmenting. Then you can move to some of the letter sounds and begin to combine them together. But I like to think of a reading routine with parents as like little blocks. Let's do a sound block. Let's work on phonics. Once we've got that block under control, let's add a second block. And
Hmm.
if we got that block under control, maybe we add a third block
Sure.
where we're starting to do some dictation, where they're actually starting to spell and write those things down. But I'm not jumping there until we've got kind of the easier, more basic blocks covered. There's nothing special about us as teachers other than at some point someone invested in and trained and coached us. That helps us to make that shift to invest in, train, and coach our parents because it is much easier, much better, much more effective, and much more longer lasting over the tail of a kid's academic career to have the family involved than it is to kind of pass from teacher to teacher, hoping that every teacher knocks it out of the park.
Awesome. I think I've never heard of families giving a survey. That is such that's my learning for today. That's such a brilliant idea. I mean, have I done that as a parent to find out more about my teachers? Yes, but I've never thought to do that from that end. So thank you for that. If you had a magic wand and you could change early reading education, and now you're in this great role, right? What would you do? What would you do? You had this wand and you could go abracadabra,
Yeah,
alakazam. What would you do?
I don't know if you're going to like my answer. I wave the wand and I get rid of screen time for children under 5.
Mm,
That's it. If I could do one thing, it's screen time.
yeah.
And I am a reading advocate. I've got a page called Toddlers Can Read. I help people teach their kids how to read. But the reason I'm focused on reading is because I care about kids. It's reading is a vehicle that helps us explore other opportunities in life. my son, he's just devouring books, just devouring them. And it is so amazing to see him at 6 versus me at 6. I mean, it's incredible to see what reading has allowed him to do. At the same time, we have a generation of children who are being raised on screens, who you put that book in front of them and it has no shot in the world of competing with the screen. And I'm actually not a zero screen time person. Like, let's like have no screen time for anyone under 5. I just think the magic wand, that's the easiest thing. Just get rid of it, because it's actually really hard to find the kind of perfect amount for each kid without it beginning to have some sort of compromise on their social skills, their ability to kind of take joy in the environment, the situation, to interact, to learn, to grow. And so what I see a lot of the time now, which is very, very sad, is parents who reach out and their kids don't even enjoy being read to. Not even reading. I can't read my kid a book. That's a bigger issue than the kid not being able to read. Or they're trying to teach the kid to read and the kid won't engage, they won't focus. We've got all these different behaviors which mimic ADHD and has been shown to directly mimic it, but we're not going back to the root source and saying we're putting something in front of their brains that is literally designed to fry it. We're just kind of saying, oh, they're dyslexic, or they've got this issue, or they can't focus. But I do think you would see more and more kids learning to read, loving reading, be engaged. And quite frankly, more parents who believe their kids are capable if they didn't spend so much time on screens, because you'd see the kids' behavior shift. And we wouldn't have so many parents messaging, my kid can't do this, my kid can't do this, maybe for you, not for me, they can't do this. And we have people believing in their kids, saying genuinely, I believe my kid can do this because I've seen them focus. So I'm going to give this a shot.
So, Spencer, you know what? I think that's a magical way to use that magic wand. And as I think about this kind of back to school season, or even if someone's listening and it's not back to school, how can families and parents partner to support children becoming stronger readers and even eventually loving reading?
About the partnership between teachers and parents? Yeah. I think from the parent perspective, I think of the back to school season as a time to build a new relationship with a new teacher and really to pour in. Something that I advocate online is to give the teacher a survey of their favorite things. We just got this back from our kids' teacher. We've had families texting us the images of them getting them back. And how many teachers have parents genuinely ask, like, how do you like to be appreciated? Like, what kind of coffee do you drink? Right. And so now we've got our son's teachers coffee order. We know her love language. We know how she wants to be appreciated. We know her restaurant and her food preferences. And over the course of the year, if we want to pour into that relationship, whether it's with money or not, right? Like whether it's buying a thing or whether it's just like writing a note, we know ways to kind of appreciate and show her that appreciation in a really, really tangible way that kind of helps to set us apart. And that's number one. And this is every year. Like anything we want in life, relationships matter, but with the teacher, there's some really tangible ways to get to know them as a person, not just the person taking care of your kid. And I encourage parents to do it because we make deposits into the relationship in order to be able to successfully make withdrawals when we need to, because stuff is going to come. There are going to be situations that happen where a kid gets hurt or picked on, or they're taught something the wrong way. And we've got to be able to enter that relationship humbly, but also with it being a genuine relationship, not just this professional thing where they're in charge of your kid. So I recommend surveys. I also recommend just trying to find small things to appreciate if you can. If you have FaceTime, sharing something specifically your kid came home with or did or learned. It can be via phone if you have it, or email. But parents, pour in as much as possible, as genuinely as possible. It is only going to help you, and it's only going to help your kid. And it feels really good on the teacher's end to receive that. I think for teachers, there's a mindset shift that I want people to make, that it is challenging because you can tell someone to change their mindset, but that doesn't always get through. But
Sure.
the mindset shift is believe that parents are capable. Like, believe they can do this. You're not the holder of all of the knowledge. Parents can learn this too, in the same way that we learned how to teach. I learned how to teach reading. I wasn't born with it. I didn't get it in high school. It's something I had to be trained in and coached and developed and try. But I think somewhere along the line, many of us forget that we learned this and our parents can learn it too. And many of them want to learn this because they want to be able to better support their kids.
Sure.
And, there was this shift in my teaching career where I went from Spencer is the teacher to Spencer and my kids' parents are their teachers, which means I've got to be teaching kids and working alongside parents. That was home visits. That was library trips. That was parent workshops. That's parents coming to my house. That's going out to dinner. This is building genuine relationships, empowering, looking at the books they have at home and offering recommendations, showing the homework and do videos on how to explain it to the kids at home. Like that transition first was over $30,000 in teaching awards that came immediately from having parents be the educator too. And second is just happier, more successful kids. So that like once we can get in our heads that like there's nothing special about us as teachers other than at some point someone invested in and trained and coached us, that helps us to make that shift to invest in, train, and coach our parents, because it is much easier, much better, much more effective, and much more longer lasting over the tail of a kid's academic career to have the family involved than it is to kind of pass from teacher to teacher, hoping that every teacher knocks it out of the park.
Awesome. I think I've never heard of families giving a survey. That's my learning for today. That's such a brilliant idea. I mean, have I done that as a parent to find out more about my teachers? Yes, but I've never thought to do that from that end. So
Yeah,
thank you
of
for that.
course.
I do want to ask a question actually before I ask my last question. And this question for my folks who are editing can probably move up in rank. But I want to ask you this question. So we're talking about reading, but you alluded to several blocks, and one of those blocks was encoding. That eventually maybe families could even support children in not just reading words, but also writing words. Do you have any more advice to families to do that?
Yeah, I think the kind of the most basic advice that I would give for someone with no teaching experience, not comfortable with reading, they just know maybe the kid's a bad speller or a bad writer, is to try and find two pieces of information from your kid. First, try and find how many sounds they can hear and write in a word. So if I give you a 3-sound word, are you writing 3 sounds or are you writing 2? If I give you a 4-sound word, are you writing 4 sounds or are you writing 3? This is going to be really, really important because a lot of parents think of words not in terms of the number of phonemes, but they think of it in terms of easy and hard. Dog, easy, mountain, hard. Like, let me just give my kid some easy words. Easy words can be 2 sounds, 3 sounds, 4 sounds, 5 sounds, 6 sounds, but those are obviously that's a really big range of
Hmm.
difficulty from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. So first, let's find how many sounds our kid can hear in a word, and let's try and focus 1 sound past that. If they can hear 3, let's do a lot of work with 4. If they can hear 4, let's do a lot of work with 5. And so that's the first piece of information I want. The second piece I want is the specific sounds. So when they hear a 3-sound word and they write those 3 sounds, which sounds are they getting correct? Which sounds are they getting incorrect? Because that's telling me something about my child's phonics ability. If
Okay.
they're always missing the short vowel sounds and they're switching E and I or that sort of thing, I know to focus in there. If they have all of the single letter sounds down, but they're missing digraphs or some more advanced vowel patterns, then that's what I'm going to focus on. But if I can figure out your you've got four sounds that you're kind of struggling with, and it's SH, TH, CH that
Yeah.
you don't know how to represent those sounds, I can start to do words like chest, which is chest, four sounds, and build your ability to hear the sounds in a word, and have you practice that ch.
Yeah.
And there's like kind of a very simple protocol we can do once we have that information, which is like, I say the word, kid says it back to me, and just make sure that they're hearing the word and saying it correctly. Then kid can use their fingers, you can use your arm, but kind of to visually represent each sound. And this is really where the coaching happens, is when the kid is telling you the sounds. So ch, s, t. And if they're missing them, we can slow it down. They're going ch, t. Let's try again. Ch, s. What do we hear there? S, ch, st. And that's going to gradually build the child's ability to hear. And I do a lot of coaching out loud, which is what are we hearing and recognizing before they ever pick up the marker, pick up the pencil, and write the word. And there's various ways to kind of teach writing. We can go from that to kind of putting together whole sentences and paragraphs, but I like to start at just the single word level, matching the number of sounds and the specific sounds they struggle with. And I do spend a lot of time just on what they struggle with, which is hard for some folks, but you can correct kids in a way that doesn't break their confidence. And that's what I try to do, which is like, this is going to be a little bit tricky today, but I'm going to help you. And we're going to go through a couple of words. And by the end, I really think that you're going to feel much more confident with these four sound words. So it's very, very targeted. It's very specific, and it's very effective.
That is a fantastic strategy, and it's something that anyone can do. It feels doable, regardless of your training or your background. Fantastic.
Thank you.
As we close, Spencer, I would love for you to provide for our listeners like a final thought. What is something that you would leave with them to inspire them to have an amazing year this year, to really, again, look at what their vision is for students in their classrooms, students that they rear at home? What would you tell them to inspire them to help them become better readers?
That's a wonderful question. I'm just thinking through what I would tell myself right now. And I think it would be one step at a time, just a little bit at a time. This is kind of my approach to life. Like, there's a number of different places in my personal life where I need to grow and improve. And so I spent some time this morning thinking through those and then picking one. And it is going to be, once we finish this interview, I'm going to go work out. Right. And so I try to make it bite-sized and manageable, because if I think about everything and I try to get really inspired to be like this amazing person, nothing happens.
What sage advice. I'm going to pick that one thing when we get off of this call. So I really have enjoyed this conversation, and I know our listeners are going to gain so much that they can really apply right away. Thank you, Spencer, for your time and for your expertise.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.